The first time my daughter ran after the accident, she did it in a storm. 1 second, Lucy was strapped into her wheelchair beneath the awning of the Charleston Maritime Museum, staring across the rain-swept courtyard at Mara Quinn. The next, she tore loose the lap belt, pushed herself upright, and stumbled into motion on legs every specialist had described as permanently unreliable. "Mara!" she screamed. I froze because I had not seen Lucy take more than 3 assisted steps in 2 years. I froze because Mara was not running toward her. She was running toward a man near the service gate, a man whose hand had disappeared inside his jacket. Then Mara moved like someone I had never met. Before we continue, subscribe and tell me where you are listening from. Some stories begin with a miracle, but this one began with a woman who refused to call anything impossible until she had measured it herself. My name is Adrian Vale. I was 32 years old, the founder of Vale Meridian Systems, and the kind of man business magazines called visionary because they did not know a polite word for obsessive. My company designed autonomous navigation systems for cargo ships, rescue craft, and naval contractors. By 30, I had more money than I knew how to spend, and less time than I knew how to protect. I was also a widower and the father of an 8-year-old girl who had not walked independently since the night a pleasure boat struck ours in Charleston Harbor. My wife, Celeste, died before the Coast Guard reached us. Lucy survived with an incomplete spinal injury, 3 fractured ribs, and a terror of deep water she refused to discuss. I survived with money, influence, and the humiliating discovery that neither could force a damaged nervous system to obey. For 2 years, I treated Lucy's recovery like a failed engineering problem. I hired the best specialists, flew her to clinics in Boston and Zurich, purchased equipment hospitals usually leased, and built a rehabilitation suite in our home overlooking the marsh. Every plan came with charts. Every chart came with cautious language. Every cautious sentence sounded to me like surrender. Lucy endured it because she loved me. That was the part I understood too late. By the time we moved temporarily to a quieter property on Sullivan's Island, she had learned to nod through evaluations and save her real feelings for the sketchbook she kept under her pillow. She drew boats with no people in them, houses with all the windows shut, and long roads disappearing into the ocean. Mara Quinn lived next door. The houses were not mansions in the usual sense. Mine was a restored sea captain's home, with white columns and enough security equipment to protect a minor embassy. Hers was a weathered blue cottage on the neighboring lot, set behind live oaks and a fence that leaned slightly toward the sea. The only thing separating our properties was a strip of dune grass, a low wooden gate, and my belief that privacy could be purchased. I met her on our second morning there. Lucy had insisted on going to the beach path before breakfast. I had taken a conference call while pushing her chair, which was exactly the kind of divided attention I told myself was necessary. The front caster sank in loose sand. I tried to wrench it free with one hand while continuing a conversation about a defense logistics contract. A woman's voice behind me said, "You can keep arguing with the sand, or you can let me help." I muted the call and turned. Mara was 28, though I did not know that yet. She wore faded cargo shorts, a gray long-sleeved shirt, and no shoes. Her dark hair was twisted into a careless knot. A thin scar crossed one eyebrow. Beside her stood a 6-year-old boy holding a red plastic shovel like a ceremonial weapon. "I have it," I said. "You clearly do." Lucy made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Mara crouched beside the chair without touching it. "May I?" she asked Lucy, not me. Lucy nodded. Mara showed her how to lean forward while she lifted the frame just enough for me to pull the caster free. The whole thing took 5 seconds. Then she brushed sand from her hands and looked at my phone. "You can unmute the Empire now." The boy tugged her sleeve. "Mom, the tide pool." "I know, Finn." She looked at Lucy. "There are tiny crabs in the rocks at low tide. He claims one of them knows him personally." "It does," Finn said. "His name is Captain." Lucy opened her sketchbook and wrote, "Can I see?" Mara read it without surprise. "Sure. Path's firm after the bend. We'll go slow." I should have said no. I did not know her. I had security protocols, medical protocols, and a daughter whose body could punish one bad decision for weeks. Instead, Lucy looked at me with more interest than she had shown in any planned activity for months. I ended the call. That was how Mara entered our lives. Barefoot, unimpressed, and carrying no promise she could not keep. She worked 3 days a week at a small boatyard on the inland side of the island and spent 2 afternoons volunteering at a community center that ran swimming and balance classes for children with mobility challenges. She told me this only after Lucy had spent 20 minutes watching Finn search tide pools and another 10 drawing the crab he insisted was Captain. "You are a physical therapist?" I asked. "No." "Occupational therapist?" "No." "Then what exactly do you do at the center?" "Mostly I keep children from drowning and adults from making everything miserable." I did not appreciate the answer. Lucy did. Over the next week, Mara and Finn appeared in the ordinary rhythm of the neighborhood. Finn rode his bicycle in circles at the end of the lane. Mara repaired an outboard motor in her driveway. Sometimes she brought over tomatoes from a garden that seemed too chaotic to produce anything. Sometimes Lucy watched from our porch while Mara worked, her attention fixed on the movement of Mara's hands. Mara never asked about the accident. She never crouched too low when speaking to Lucy, never used the bright, careful voice adults reserve for children they pity, and never praised her for routine things. When Lucy reached for a dropped pencil, Mara did not say "good job." She simply moved her foot out of the way. That restraint did more for Lucy than all the encouragement money had purchased. One afternoon I came home early from a meeting and found Lucy at the low gate between our yards. Mara was on the other side, sitting cross-legged in the grass with 2 metal bowls. One held warm water, the other held ice water. "What is this?" I asked. "A test," Mara said. Lucy's shoes were off. Her feet rested on a towel. Mara held a cold spoon against the outside of Lucy's left ankle. "Cold," Lucy said through the speech application on her tablet. Mara moved the spoon 2 inches higher. "And here," Lucy shook her head. I felt my body tighten. "Who authorized you to do sensory testing?" "No one." "Then stop." Mara looked up at me. Her expression did not change, but something in it hardened. "I am not diagnosing her," she said. "I noticed she pulled her foot away when Finn spilled ice water yesterday." "Reflex." "Maybe. You are not qualified to decide otherwise." "No," she said. "But I am qualified to notice when a body does something." Lucy's hand closed over the edge of the towel. I saw it and forced my voice lower. "Lucy, inside." She did not move. Mara set down the spoon. "Your father is scared." I stared at her. Lucy looked at me, then typed, "He is always scared." The tablet spoke in its flat electronic voice. I had negotiated billion-dollar contracts without blinking. I had stood in a hospital hallway while a surgeon explained why my wife could not be saved. Yet 5 mechanical words from my daughter left me with nothing to say. Mara gathered the bowls. "Take the observation to her doctor. Let them test it properly. That is all." I did. Dr. Neha Patel, the neurologist overseeing Lucy's care in Charleston, repeated the sensory assessment 2 days later, Then she ordered updated imaging and nerve conduction studies. The results showed residual response along the left perineal pathway, weak but consistent. It had been present in older data, marked as artifact, and never pursued. I sat across from Dr. Patel with the report in my hand. "What does it mean?" I asked. "It means Lucy has a reliable sensory island near the ankle. It does not mean she will walk." "What does it mean for therapy?" "It means we can redesign therapy around a pathway her brain still recognizes." I thought of Mara saying, "I am qualified to notice when a body does something." When I returned to the island, she was replacing a fuel line on a fishing skiff in her driveway. Finn was drawing chalk roads on the pavement. Lucy waited beside me in her chair. "You were right," I said. Mara glanced up. "About what?" "The ankle." She wiped her hands on a rag. "Good." That was all. No satisfaction, no lecture, no request for credit. Dr. Patel wanted to add water-based work because buoyancy reduced Lucy's fear of falling. The community center had a therapy pool, and Mara was already there twice a week. When I asked whether she would assist, she said she would do it only if Lucy's licensed therapist led the sessions, and only if I agreed to stay out of the pool area for the first 3 visits. "Why?" I asked. "Because every time she tries to move, you hold your breath. She watches you instead of listening to her body." "I do not." Mara waited. I hated that silence because it made dishonesty feel childish. 3 sessions? I said. 3 sessions. On the first afternoon, I watched through tinted glass from a small observation room. Lucy sat on a submerged bench while Dr. Patel's therapist guided her left foot against a resistance band. Mara stood waist-deep several feet away, not touching her. "Do not chase the whole leg," Mara said. "Find the cold spot." Lucy closed her eyes. "Now imagine the tide pulling only that part of you." Nothing happened. They repeated it. Nothing happened again. On the 27th attempt, Lucy's ankle turned slightly inward. The therapist looked at Mara. Mara shook her head once, warning her not to celebrate. "Again," Mara said. Lucy tried again. The movement did not return that day. On the drive home, I waited for Lucy to be disappointed. Instead, she wrote on her tablet. It listened once. That sentence became the foundation of everything that followed. Mara called the exercises tide drills. Dr. Patel called them localized neuromuscular re-education. Lucy called them annoying. For 6 weeks, the 3 descriptions existed together. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I drove Lucy to the community center. Every Saturday, Mara met us at a protected stretch of beach, where wet sand gave Lucy's braces a firm surface. Finn walked backward in front of her, inventing increasingly ridiculous destinations. 3 steps to the moon base, he would say. "There is no moon base," Lucy's tablet answered. "Then we have to build it." Mara never promised Lucy she would run. She never even promised she would walk. She gave her smaller targets. Make the ankle answer twice. Hold the knee for 3 seconds. Shift weight without gripping the rail. Recover from a wobble before anyone touched her. "It is not courage if someone keeps rescuing you before you discover what you can survive," she told me once. We were standing beside the therapy pool after Lucy and Finn had gone to buy juice with the therapist. Mara was wringing water from her hair. A pale scar ran from beneath her shoulder blade toward her ribs. I had noticed others. A small round mark near her collarbone, a line across her palm, the eyebrow scar. "You say things like, 'Someone who has had specialized training,'" I said. "I have had a complicated life." "That is not an answer. It is the one I am giving." I should have pressed. Investigation was how I handled uncertainty. Instead, I looked through the glass at Lucy, laughing silently while Finn tried to balance 2 juice boxes on his head. "Why help her?" I asked. Mara's expression softened. "Because she is working harder than everyone around her realizes," she said. "And because people keep talking about her legs as if she is not in the room." That night, she and Finn ate dinner with us. It happened because a thunderstorm knocked out power on their side of the lane, and Finn announced from our porch that their refrigerator contained nothing safe except mustard. Our chef had prepared enough food for 10 people, although only Lucy and I were expected. Mara looked uncomfortable in my dining room, not because of the wealth, I realized, but because a staff member kept trying to serve her. She finally took the bread basket from him and said, "I have survived independent bread acquisition." Lucy laughed out loud. It was a brief, rusty sound, but it stopped every adult at the table. Mara did not react. She simply handed Lucy a roll. I loved her a little for that before I understood what love had begun to mean. After dinner, Finn convinced Lucy to play a card game in the library. Mara and I sat on the back veranda while rain moved across the marsh in silver sheets. "Finn's father?" I asked. "Not involved. I am sorry. I am not." Her answer had no bitterness, only finality. "He left before Finn was born," she continued. "He liked the idea of a family better than the daily reality. Some people mistake wanting a life for being willing to build one." I looked through the window at our children. "Celeste was willing," I said. "She was better at the daily part than I was." Mara said nothing. "The last conversation we had was an argument," I continued. "I was checking messages while we were on the boat. She told me I could turn any room into an office if I tried hard enough. I told her the company was not going to run itself." The rain struck the roof harder. Then the other boat hit us. Mara's voice was quiet. "You did not cause the collision. I made her final hour feel unimportant." That is not the same sentence. It feels like the same sentence. She turned toward me. Guilt likes efficiency. It takes a complicated disaster and gives you one person to blame. Usually yourself, because then at least the world feels controllable. I looked at her. "Who taught you that? No one. I learned it badly." For the first time, I saw the grief behind her composure. It was not fresh, but it was organized with military precision, packed into spaces she could carry without anyone seeing the weight. Our friendship grew through ordinary things. Mara fixed the old sailboat that had belonged to Celeste's father. I helped Finn build a weather station for school. Lucy started coming to breakfast without being reminded. Sometimes Mara joined us for coffee before the beach drills. Sometimes I found her on our porch after dark, because Finn was asleep upstairs beside Lucy, and neither of us wanted to end the evening. She made me laugh in ways that felt disloyal at first. That was another form of guilt I had not expected. One night in late September, after the children had fallen asleep during a movie, Mara and I carried them upstairs. I held Lucy. Mara carried Finn with his cheek against her shoulder. At the guest room door, Finn stirred and murmured, "Love you, Mom. Love you too, wild man." The tenderness in her voice caught me off guard. After we settled them, we met in the hallway between the rooms. The house was quiet. Mara was close enough that I could see a tiny fleck of gold in her brown eyes. "You're staring," she said. "I know. Is there a reason?" "Yes." I kissed her. For half a second, she went completely still. Then her hand came to the back of my neck, and she kissed me with a restraint that felt more intimate than urgency. She stepped away first. "Adrian." "I know." "No, you do not. Then tell me." Her eyes moved towards the room where Finn slept. "I do not enter a child's life casually," she said, and I will not let anyone enter his casually either. I am not asking for casual. You do not know enough about me to ask for anything else. Whose fault is that?" The question landed badly. Her face closed. "I should go," she said. "Mara." But she was already moving down the stairs. The next morning, she behaved as if the kiss had not happened. Lucy noticed the distance immediately. Children who have lost stability become experts in atmospheric pressure. At breakfast, she typed, "Did you make Mara mad?" "No." She raised one eyebrow. "Possibly." "Fix it," the tablet said. I intended to. Instead, my head of security arrived with a file. Cal Mercer had worked with me since Vale Meridian was a company of 12 people. He was former federal law enforcement, relentlessly careful, and one of the few people who could tell me I was being stupid without softening the language. He placed a thin folder on my office desk. "Mara Quinn does not exist before age 25, he said. I stared at him. No school records, no employment history, no residential trail under that name. Her driver's license is valid. Finn's birth certificate is valid. Everything before that is either sealed or scrubbed. You investigated my neighbor? I investigated a person with unrestricted access to your daughter. She does not have unrestricted access. She has door codes to this house. Because our children are friends?" Cal folded his arms. 3 weeks ago, someone attempted to access archived design files connected to the Halcyon guidance contract. The intrusion originated from a public network on this island. My company's Halcyon system had been built for autonomous rescue vessels, but the Navy was evaluating a modified version for unmanned coastal surveillance. The contract was worth money. More importantly, it was sensitive. "You think Mara is stealing from me? I think you know nothing about her." I looked at the folder but did not open it. "What did you find?" "A former identity. Mara Quinn. Navy service records are restricted beyond basic confirmation. Then nothing for 18 months. Then Mara Quinn appears in Georgia with a baby and a legal name change. Navy in what capacity? Unknown. Find out." Cal did not move. "Are you sure?" The question should have stopped me. It did not, yes. 2 days later, Lucy's left knee held her weight for 9 seconds. She was between parallel rails in the community center, Mara behind her and the therapist in front. I stood at the far end, trying not to hold my breath. "Do not look at him," Mara told Lucy. "He is emotionally unreliable." Lucy smiled. "I heard that," I said. "You were meant to." Lucy shifted forward. Her brace clicked. Her knee trembled but did not collapse. 1, the therapist counted. 2, 3. At 6, Lucy looked at me. At 9, her leg gave way. Mara caught the safety belt, guiding her down without lifting her. Lucy slapped the rail in frustration. "Again," she said with her own voice. It was the first time she had spoken during therapy since the accident. Mara knelt beside her. "You sure?" Again. They tried again. This time Lucy held for 11 seconds. I watched Mara's face. Pride flickered there, carefully contained. Something inside me opened and hurt at the same time. After the session, I asked her to walk with me to the pier. The afternoon was bright. The harbor crowded with white sails. Mara leaned against the railing while I tried to decide whether honesty could still be honest after betrayal. "My security chief found your former name," I said. She did not move. "Mara Quinn." The silence between us changed. "You investigated me. There was an attempted breach at my company, so you decided the woman helping your daughter might be an enemy. I decided I needed facts. You could have asked. You would have refused. Yes." She looked at me. "Because some facts are not yours. What were you in the Navy?" Her gaze went flat. "That is not relevant to Lucy. It became relevant when you used specialized methods no civilian record explains. I work under her doctor's supervision. And when your identity disappears for years? She pushed away from the railing. I told you I had a complicated life. That was not enough. For you, for a father protecting his child. She flinched, almost invisibly. I knew I had struck the place she guarded most. I would die before I hurt Lucy, she said. I believe that. No, you believe evidence. You believe files. You believe whatever can be arranged into a report, so you never have to trust what you cannot control. That is unfair. It is accurate. She walked away. That evening, Finn came to collect a backpack he had left in Lucy's room. Mara waited at the gate instead of coming inside. Lucy understood immediately. Are we still doing the pool tomorrow? She asked. Mara looked at her, and the anger left her face. Dr. Patel and your therapist will be there. That is not what I asked. Mara glanced at me. No, she said gently. Not tomorrow. Lucy's lower lip tightened. Because of Dad? Mara did not answer. That was answer enough. After they left, Lucy turned her wheelchair toward me. You ruin things, she said. I had heard my daughter speak only a handful of spontaneous sentences in 2 years. I would have given almost anything for more. Not that one. Cal called at midnight. We found the service classification, he said. Mara Quinn completed naval special warfare training under a compartmented personnel program. Operational assignment with a SEAL team. Combat medic specialization. Multiple deployments. Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Purple Heart. I sat alone in the dark library. A SEAL, I said. One of the earliest women cleared through the full pipeline. Most of the record is sealed. She left after an operation in the Red Sea. There was an investigation, but not into her conduct. It involved a compromised intelligence chain and civilian casualties. She testified. Then she vanished. Why the new name? We cannot confirm. Likely protection after the inquiry. And Finn? Born 7 months after her discharge. Father not listed. I looked toward the ceiling, toward the room where Lucy slept. Mara had not hidden a criminal history. She had hidden a life in which secrecy had probably kept people alive. And I had responded by proving that no door was safe from a man with enough money. The next morning, Mara's cottage was empty. A note was taped inside the low gate. Finn and I are staying with my sister for a while. Lucy's therapist has the full tide drill sequence. Please do not look for us. I read it twice. Then Lucy took it from my hand. Her face changed as she read. You made her leave. I am going to fix it. You always say that. The words were quiet, not angry. That made them worse. You fix the plan, she said. You do not fix how people feel. She rolled away before I could answer. For the next 10 days, Lucy refused the pool. She attended land therapy because Dr. Patel insisted, but the life went out of it. Her ankle still responded. Her knee still held. Yet progress slowed because the body was not the only thing that had been moving. I called Mara once. The number went to voicemail. I did not leave a message. Then my board made the situation more complicated. Vale Meridian was preparing to announce the Halcyon contract. During a confidential session, my chief operating officer, Grant Voss, argued that the attempted data breach and my personal distraction created unacceptable risk. He recommended postponing the announcement and moving me temporarily out of direct oversight. Grant had been with the company for 9 years. He had survived every stage of growth by being calm, loyal, and strategically forgettable. I had trusted him with more access than almost anyone. What personal distraction? I asked. He glanced at the directors around the table. Your daughter's unconventional treatment. Your involvement with an unidentified former service member. The security review you initiated, and then apparently abandoned. My skin went cold. Only Cal and I knew the details of Mara's file. Who told you she was former service? Grant paused, half a beat too long. Cal saw it too. The meeting ended 5 minutes later. By evening, we knew the truth. The attempted breach had not come from Mara. It had been routed through the island to make proximity look like guilt. The credentials used belonged to Grant's office. He had been negotiating secretly with a foreign maritime consortium that wanted the Halcyon source architecture before our government contract locked it down. And now he knew we were looking at him. Cal increased security around the house. I told Lucy only that a company problem required precautions. She watched men check windows and gates with the weary expression of a child who had already learned adults rarely admit how frightened they are. "Call Mara," she said. "I cannot ask her to solve this. I did not say solve it. What are you saying? I want her here." So did I. That did not make it right to summon her into danger I had helped create. The storm arrived the next afternoon, sudden and violent, with coastal wind that rattled the shutters and sent rain horizontally across the island. The Maritime Museum was hosting a children's accessibility exhibition funded by my foundation. I had wanted to cancel. Lucy refused. "Mara helped design my part," she said. "I am going." Her display showed the tide drills through drawings, sensor maps, and a short video of her ankle moving in the pool. It did not promise miracles. It explained how one overlooked signal had changed her therapy. We arrived with security at every entrance. Halfway through the event, the lights flickered. Cal touched his earpiece. Then the fire alarm sounded. People began moving toward the courtyard exits. Staff guided wheelchairs and walkers through the wide doors. Rain hammered the awnings. I stayed beside Lucy while Cal's team scanned the crowd. Across the courtyard, through the water streaking my vision, I saw Mara. She stood near the service gate in a dark rain jacket, Finn beside her beneath a yellow hood. For one irrational second, relief erased everything else. Lucy saw her too. "Mara!" Mara turned. At the same instant, Cal shouted, "Adrian, down!" A man near the gate reached inside his jacket. Lucy tore open her lap belt. I grabbed for her and missed. She pushed upward, braces locking, feet striking the wet stone. Her first steps were ugly and fast and completely hers. She did not walk toward Mara. She ran. 3 steps, 4, 5. Her left knee buckled. She recovered without stopping. Mara shoved Finn behind a concrete planter and moved directly at the man. He pulled a compact pistol. Mara caught his wrist before the weapon cleared his jacket. What happened next lasted perhaps 4 seconds. She drove his arm into the gate, turned beneath it, struck his elbow, and sent the pistol skidding through rainwater. When a second man came from behind the service truck, she pivoted, kicked his knee sideways, and used the first attacker's body as a barrier. Her movements were not theatrical. They were efficient, controlled, and terrifyingly precise. Lucy reached her just as the second man fell. Mara caught Lucy around the waist with one arm while pinning the first attacker to the ground with the other. "Easy," she said. "I have you." Lucy wrapped both arms around her neck. "I knew you would come," she sobbed. Police and Cal's team flooded the courtyard. Finn emerged from behind the planter, crying but unhurt. I stood 10 feet away, unable to move. My daughter had just run. The woman holding her had just disarmed 2 armed men in a storm. And suddenly, every scar, every careful answer, every moment of impossible calm rearranged itself into the truth. Mara looked at me over Lucy's shoulder. There was no triumph in her face. Only exhaustion. Only the question of whether I had finally learned to see her without opening a file. The attackers worked for Grant. One carried a drive designed to clone the museum's network credentials. The exhibition computers had temporary access to a Vale Meridian demonstration server, and Grant had expected the evacuation to create enough confusion to reach it. The pistol, according to the first statement his lawyer released, had never been intended for use. Cal read that sentence to me in the hospital waiting room. I told him to stop. Lucy had strained her left knee and torn skin from both palms, but the scans showed no new spinal damage. She sat on the examination bed with Mara on one side and Finn on the other, refusing to release Mara's hand. Dr. Patel entered with the expression of a physician trying to balance concern with astonishment. "You ran," she said. Lucy nodded. "You should not do that again without preparation." Lucy nodded more slowly. Dr. Patel looked at Mara. "How far?" "About 16 feet. Without assistance?" "Without permission," I said. Lucy almost smiled. The police wanted Mara's statement. My attorneys wanted mine. Reporters were already gathering outside because someone had recorded part of the courtyard incident. For once, none of those people received priority. I asked Finn to stay with Lucy and followed Mara into the empty corridor. Her wet hair hung loose around her shoulders. There was blood on one sleeve, though none of it was hers. She looked tired in a way I had never seen before, the old kind of tired, deeper than the day. "I know," I said. "That I was a seal?" "Yes." "You had someone keep digging?" "Yes." She looked toward Lucy's room. "Then you know enough to understand why I left that life buried. I know facts. I do not understand what they cost." Her eyes returned to mine. "I was wrong," I said. "Not because you turned out to be decorated or because you saved us today. I was wrong before any of that. I treated trust like a security clearance I had the right to grant after inspecting every sealed room in your life." Mara crossed her arms. But she listened. "I told myself I was protecting Lucy," I continued. "The truth is, I was protecting myself from needing someone I could not control. You saw my daughter more clearly than I did. Then I punished you for seeing me clearly too." The corridor hummed with fluorescent light. "I cannot undo the investigation," I said. "I cannot make the violation smaller. I can promise I will never use my power to cross that boundary again. And if the only way to prove it is to leave you alone, I will." Mara's jaw tightened. "You do not get forgiveness because you finally found the correct speech. I know. You do not get to turn remorse into another problem you solve efficiently. I know." She studied me for a long moment. "Grant's people found me because of your investigation," she said. "One of the databases your contractor touched triggered an old flag. That is how they learned enough to use me against you." The knowledge landed like a blow. "I am sorry. I believe you." Her voice softened, but only slightly. "That is not the same as being ready." "I know that too." Lucy called from the room. "Mara?" Mara closed her eyes for 1 second, then returned to her. I did not follow. Grant was arrested 2 days later. The board removed him unanimously. The Halcyon contract was delayed, reviewed, and eventually approved with new safeguards. The market punished us for a quarter and forgot by the next one. Mara did not forget so quickly. She returned to the island because Finn wanted his school and because Lucy's rehabilitation mattered to her. But she moved carefully around me. We spoke about schedules, therapy, and security. She did not come for dinner. I did not ask her to. Trust returned in increments too small for headlines. A cup of coffee left on her workbench without a note. A gate code she chose herself. A Saturday session where she let me stand beside the pool instead of behind the glass. I learned to breathe while Lucy struggled. I learned not to reach every time she swayed. By January, Lucy could cross our kitchen without braces. By March, she could walk the firm sand beyond the dunes with one trekking pole. Running remained unsafe, a fact she accepted only after arguing with 3 doctors and Mara. On the anniversary of Celeste's death, Lucy asked Mara and Finn to come with us to the harbor. We took the restored sailboat out at sunrise. Lucy was quiet when we scattered flowers over the water. Finn stood beside her without asking questions. Mara stayed near the mast, giving us space. On the return trip, the wind died, and we drifted in a sheet of gold light. Lucy went below with Finn to find snacks. Mara and I remained on deck. "Celeste would have liked you," I said. Mara looked towards the water. "You cannot know that." "No, but she disliked people who were impressed by me, so you would have had an advantage." Mara laughed. It was the first unguarded laugh she had given me since the investigation. "I miss you," I said. Her expression changed. "I am not saying that to move you," I added. "I am saying it because it is true. I miss you too." The words were quiet. "I am still angry." "You should be. I still check the windows twice when a car slows near the house." "I know, and part of me keeps waiting for you to decide that loving me requires owning every explanation. It does not." She looked at me directly. "How do you know?" "Because loving Lucy did not mean owning her recovery. I had to learn that. Loving you cannot mean owning your history." The boat rocked gently beneath us. Mara stepped closer. "This is not fixed," she said. "No. It may never be neat. I have had enough neat plans." She kissed me. It was not the beginning we might have had before I broke her trust. It was a different beginning, one with consequences inside it and room for repair. A year after the storm, the community center opened a new adaptive movement wing. Mara designed the program with Dr. Patel, combining water work, balance training, and the patient search for signals other people had dismissed. She refused to let them name it after her. Lucy suggested Tide House. That name stayed. Mara never returned to military service. She did agree to train emergency teams in trauma response, on the condition that her operational history remain private. The public knew only that a former Navy specialist had helped stop an attack at the museum. That was enough. Finn turned 7 and continued to believe every tide pool crab was related to Captain. Lucy turned 9 and walked into her birthday party holding no rail, no brace, and no one's hand. She still used a chair on difficult days. She no longer treated that as failure. The 4 of us eventually moved into my house. Though Mara kept the blue cottage as a workshop and as proof, she said that everyone needed a door they could close. One evening, I found Lucy at the low gate where our story had started. She was drawing the 2 houses, but this time every window was open. Mara came up behind me and slipped her hand into mine. "You are holding your breath," she said. "I am working on it." Across the yard, Lucy put down her pencil and ran 3 careful steps toward Finn. I did not freeze. I watched. That was the miracle in the end. Not that my daughter moved, or that a hidden Navy SEAL appeared when we needed her, or even that 2 damaged families became one. It was that I finally understood love wasn't the power to prevent every fall. It was the courage to remain present while someone found their own balance, and to be there with open hands when they chose to run toward you. Thank you for listening. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to remember that one overlooked signal can change an entire life.